Hey, it's Sparky, Fifer, 1250 AM, The Fan, another edition of Green and Growing. Nathan Marzion on the road. He went down to Indianapolis for the game in which the Bucks embarrassed themselves against the Pacers in Game 6. He's joining us via the phone. Follow him on Twitter at Nathan Marzion right there on your video screen, on your YouTube audio sports page is the ever dapper and ever cute Bart Winkler. Follow him at Bart Winkler Show. Bart nods in agreement with the description of him. I think I did that pretty well, Bart. Yeah.
The dapper was nice. The cute kind of took me off guard, but it's not like I don't hear that every day. So
I understand. I'm sure you have it all the time. Yes. Okay, let's get into this Bucks embarrassing deal. Check out Bart Winkler weeknights, by the way, on 1250 AM The Fan from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. on the Infinity Sports Radio Network with, of course, the Bart Winkler Show. Nathan, you were there. To me, watching on TV, not being there in the first quarter of that game, that crowd did not seem very loud, did not seem very into it. And like Halliburton, they're a bunch of front runners. So as you know, they got the lead, then obviously they got louder and got quite loud there in the second half. Your thought on the stadium, the atmosphere, the whole deal?
Yeah, the stadium's cool. I went to Indy last year for a regular season game, and that was my first time seeing that stadium and being, around the arena and stuff. And Indy's a cool place, and I've liked their stadium. As far as the atmosphere, yeah, I completely agree. They were very quiet to start the game. It really felt like a regular season game for basically the whole first quarter. Even when the Pacers were going on, mini runs, it wasn't getting very loud. And then, as they started, wasn't anything more than I'm used to from like the Fiserv. I thought Fiserv is a better playoff crowd. I didn't think it was crazy, deafening loud in there yesterday. But yeah, frustrating to see the season end the way it did. I just wanted to see the Bucks pull it out, but unfortunately, season's over and we're on to the off season.
Hey Bart, I got a question for you. You've covered all kinds of sports and teams. Which is the best playoff atmosphere for you when it comes to fans? Is it the NBA playoffs and that type of deal? Is it Major League Baseball? When they're in a playoff series? Is it the National Football League in a playoff game? College sports, NCAA tournament? What is it for you?
The best playoff atmosphere that I think I've been in terms of this feels elevated, was a 2008 Brewers series where Dave Bush struck out the side to start the game against the Phillies. And the thing with baseball is, and basketball is the same, and I'm really like getting obsessed with this. Football, it's like, okay, every game is important. Playoffs are still important. But basketball, baseball, even hockey, these are different sports in the playoffs. There's a different atmosphere in the playoffs. And I think one of the things that leads to the crowd being the way it is, and that's why I'm surprised with how, like, I don't want to say bad, but how maybe tepid the Indiana crowd was normally you get passionate crowds when it hasn't been there for a while. Like thinking of Bucks Hawks back in 2010, that was probably in the Bradley Center more passionate than what we've experienced on this run, because, and this is the problem with losing like this, and we talked about this, but this is like, you get to this point and then, yeah, there's going to be a regular season. We'll watch the games. We'll get into it. But does anything really matter until you get to this point? Again, I'm going to use my video game analogy for the 100th time. When you used to play video games, if you died at level 7 and it was level 8 game, you were screwed. There was no saving. There was no checkpoint. There was no nothing. And so why go through all that when you're just trying to get to the part where you're trying to get to? And that's how I feel like this Bucks team has been, especially now that they've won one and the expectation every year is to win one again. It kind of dilutes the whole thing, and then it even dilutes maybe the first round a little bit. So I always think that baseball series, the first one with the Brewers having a 26-year drought, obviously I don't want the Bucks to go through a 26-year drought to feel that kind of intensity at Fiserv again, but that would be it for me.
Yeah, I agree. That would be mine as well. I was in the press box for that one. Okay, so Nathan Marzion, at what point during that game 6, did you feel like, okay, well, it doesn't appear it's going to be the Bucs night. Mainly, how long did you hold out hope that they could turn this thing around while you were there watching the game?
I had hope until the TJ McConnell 3 late in the third to put them up. I think it was 15 at the time. That was when I pretty much was like, "Yep, this isn't going to be the year. It's going to be the night." I really thought. I mean, they cut it to Brooke had that and one to make it 7 with a minute left in the third, and it was like, holy cow! Like you can make this free throw, it'll be 6. You still have a minute left. You could get this thing down to 1 possession before the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, they got it up to 15 by the end of the third, and it was just like, that's it. That's the dagger. That last minute was brutal. I mean, it just was the backbreaker on the whole season. So, yeah, that was pretty much when I gave up hope. But I held out hope for quite a while, just because I was like, they never let it get totally out of control. They were just in it enough to keep you interested, keep you involved. It was like 12 for a while. They got it down to 8. It would go back up to 12, but then it would go back down to 8 or 7. And it was like they just were hanging in there just enough. And finally, that last minute of the third quarter, it was pretty much over.
Bart, how about you? What was it over for you in your mind? Is because you were in here watching the second half in the studio before you did your national show.
Yeah, there was a point very early where I thought it was going to go the other way. Like, I don't know, they were up 10-3 and Bobby Portis had a look on him. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. And I was thinking I had planned Saturday. I'm ready to cancel. There was a concert I was going to go to Monday. I was ready to cancel for game 1. I think anytime you get TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin making these buckets, I don't know that it was a specific point. I think maybe as I was driving in, they were down 12 at half and they cut it to maybe 9, maybe 7. So we might be in the same kind of spot. And that lead just wasn't shrinking. And I feel like the Bucs have had a lot of playoff games like that, where they get themselves down in a spot and then try to come back, and it just, it doesn't happen. They can't break that seal. Also, with it being Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell, and I can ask Nathan about this, but that was kind of, in a sicko way, that was kind of refreshing to me that they were the ones that I could hate in that game. Because normally in these playoff series, who do you hate? You hate like an Al Horford. You hate like a Fred VanVleet when he wasn't a max player. You hate these guys that are the 6th, 7th, 8th guys on their team. But in this series, the guy to hate was their supposed superstar, Tyrese Halliburton. We've been through these series where, oh, yeah, I hate the role player. Oh, my God. But Tyrese Halliburton, man, and I'm just, a lot of years when we get beat, I dread the next series because, are they going to? I am so excited to watch the Pacers get crushed by the Knicks. I'm so thrilled. I am so hyped to see that fan base get humbled and that team.
Nathan, what about you from the perspective of, losing this game? For me, it was pretty much start of the third, but you saw warning signs all over the place. When they full court press and you turn it over back-to-back times, and you're going, holy crap. Middleton's not hitting the shots, not as nearly involved in the offense as he was once Lillard came back. Lillard wasn't hitting the shots nearly as much either during the course of that game. And then you find out afterwards from Lillard in the post-game press conference that pretty much it was tender. He probably shouldn't have been out there, but he got into the arena, saw all the shirts on the seats and said, F it, I'm playing. Regardless of how good or bad I feel, I'm going to try and play. He clearly wasn't 100%, and he went out there and gutted it out. Doc Rivers, after the game, said pretty much that Milton told him pretty much, Dame's here, cool, go get it, buddy. It's all you. Have at it. Because he was zapped and he was gassed. And Doc talked about the fact that they should have had Milton more involved, but, laughing, he said, I kind of understand where Milton was at this point of the series. It was never going to be if the two best players on your team weren't playing at a high level.
Yeah, and by the way, some breaking news, the Lakers fired Darvin Ham, so that's interesting.
Maybe we could fire Doc Rivers and hire Darvin Ham. See how many coaches we could pay at once.
But yeah, so that game, I never felt confident after that 10-3 start. There wasn't once the Pacers came back pretty quickly after we were up 10-3, and from that point on, I wasn't confident at any point, but I was just still hopeful, still, again, they were in it just enough to keep you into it. But it was pretty much from the mid first quarter on, you were kind of just hanging on, and you were just hoping they could stay in the game. You were hoping that they could make a run later, but it just, you didn't know when it was going to come. You didn't know if it was going to come. And that was the thing is, yeah, I mean, Dame looked fine. He had 26. I mean, he wasn't like terrible. He wasn't totally struggling out there, but didn't seem to be 100%. And yeah, Chris struggled early and wasn't really the same player he was the 3 games prior. And it just was like, I don't know if we're going to have enough offensively to be able to make a run here and really get this thing from, 12 or 14 back to 0 or back to us having the lead. So, yeah, I mean, basically from the mid first on, it was a just kind of survival mode almost where they went down double digits and you're just trying to hang in there and not let it totally balloon. And again, I mean, credit to them for hanging in there as long as they did. It wasn't like that it got out of hand early. They stayed in it and got it down to reasonable numbers several times, but eventually, it did balloon and it got back up to 15, 20, and, fourth quarter was a blowout. So,
okay. So as a fan, your responsibility is to finger point and say who's to blame for why things didn't go the way we wanted at the end of the day. That's how it works. Bart Winkler, you finger pointing anybody at this point of why they lost this series?
No, Giannis was hurt. And I don't think that we give the same sort, like we, the American people and beyond. We don't factor that in. We see Giannis be hurt, and if the Nuggets lost Jokic, there would be if the Nuggets lost Jokic and lost the playoff series in the first round, nobody would think anything of it. They'd be, oh, Jokic is hurt. That's the only qualifier you need. There wouldn't be an article the next day on the Ringer about Giannis if he's going to leave again. Which I invited that guy on my show for tonight, just via Twitter. I said, I don't want you to come on to talk about this. I want to come on and lecture you about why this article is garbage. So I'm glad that we keep doing this. I don't know how many times Giannis needs to say.
Well, you had Stephen A. Smith on TV today talking about why the Bucks should trade Damian Lillard and how it would benefit the Bucks. So
Stephen A. just does stuff.
Everybody's piling on. That's what this is. Nobody wants this town to have anything.
When Stephen A. does it, it's like your uncle citing the most lack of proof.
No. It's from
beers. Yeah, it's like your uncle after a few beers, just like firing off some tape.
Yeah, fine. But both of you, it's not any different with any of these other guys. None of these national media guys want this town to have anything because none of them want to come here to cover any of it. They don't want to come here. They want to go to South Beach. Stephen A. said that's his favorite place on earth pretty much. So, or New York, he didn't get to go to a big market.
I think it's more than that.
He got stuck in Milwaukee.
The Bucks are held to this impossible curve where nothing they can do is right. And then of course they have to hire walking meme Doc Rivers, to just have everybody pile on more when I don't think this series was on him necessarily. And
Agreed.
Then you have this team that if you look at all the winners of the NBA Finals, when's the last team out of the East to win one? Besides us? The Cavs? These teams, we're the only one that's winning.
Huh? Mm-hmm.
Or the Raptors. No, the Raptors. But in this modern era, we're the only one that's winning, and yet we're held to this impossible curve because Giannis kept staying. It doesn't make any sense. It infuriates me.
Well, now wait a second. Hold on.
Trying to be national guy.
Hold on.
I sound more local.
But wait a second. This comes with the territory of being the best in your sport. LeBron was held to this crazy curve wherever he went, without question, he was held to that curve. So it's now Giannis's turn to be held to the same thing. I mean, isn't that right, Nathan? When you're the best guy or one of the best guys, you're held to that. The Bucks have never gotten past the second round more than 2 times in his entire career. Toronto, you lost after being up 2-0, and I thought they were going to sweep Toronto. And then the championship run. Those were the only 2 times in Giannis's career this organization has advanced past the second round.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you're held to that curve, but it's frustrating when, number one, I mean, the main reason they haven't done it more times is just because of injury. It's not like he's choked in the playoffs and played poorly. The frustrating thing for me is, like, there are other examples of stuff happening where a team doesn't have a title and their team is losing and they have a superstar player. The Philly is the main example where Embiid has not gotten past the second round, and it's been largely just because of his play. It's not like he's usually playing injured because he's always hurt, but he's been playing in these series and, playing poorly and losing. And nobody talks about, when is Embiid going to leave? When is he going to want out? They can't build a team around him. They can't win with him. But it's like he doesn't have a title. Like the Bucks, at least the frustrating part is that Giannis has done it. Giannis has won the title. Giannis has he should be stamped. He should be a guy that, okay, he can win in Milwaukee. He can be the number one. He has shown he can do it. But for some reason that just has not gotten people off of his back and off of our back as far as, every time we lose, is Giannis going to leave? Is he satisfied? Is he happy? And it's like, we won the title. Like, we've shown we can build a winning team around it. We've proven that we can do it. Whereas these other teams have not proven they can do it, and they still get let off the hook every time that they lose in the playoffs. And so I just get annoyed at the way that it's just Milwaukee being picked on, and it seems like it's only us that ever has this stuff happen. And maybe it does happen with other teams, and we don't notice as much because we don't see it if it's not our team. But it just is very annoying seeing this happen every year with the Bucks. It's like we could lose Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and people would be saying, "Oh, is Giannis happy? Is Giannis wanting to leave? Is Dame wanting to leave?" Whereas other teams lose in the first round or second round, and it's nobody bats an eye. Luka hasn't made the finals. Is anyone talking about when is Luka going to want out of Dallas? No. It's very annoying. But I mean, I know what you mean. I know there's the standard that comes with it, and you obviously expect to win the title every year. You expect greatness out of Giannis. I just think there are these last 2 years, especially, it's a little bit. I mean, he has been hurt, and he obviously missed this series. It's like you're not really. I don't know how he can. I don't know why you're saying Giannis would want to leave when it's his fault.
Yes.
I mean, in air quotes, it's his fault,
right,
that we lost the series. It's not like he's playing and everyone else around him sucks or is hurt.
Yep.
And he has all these people to blame. No, like Giannis knows this. Like, if you ask Giannis, he'd say, yeah, I mean, I wish I was healthy, and I mean, I wasn't out there to help my team, and I wasn't there. Like, he has no one to blame but himself. And I'm not saying, obviously he can't control getting hurt completely, but it's just like, I don't know why he would be upset at the team or be unhappy when him being hurt was the main reason they lost the series. If anything, I think he should be impressed that they fought as hard as they did, and he'd look around and say, hey, this team, they took them to 6 games. These games were close. These games were competitive outside of Game 6. Like, they really fought hard without me, and I would think he'd be actually impressed by it instead of, upset. So, yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears here. I want to talk about Patrick Beverley, because that obviously is the story nationally as well. Everybody's talking about it. I'm sure I'll talk about it on Wisconsin Sports Daily here on Friday, served up by Wendy's. And that is throwing a basketball multiple times into the stands. And then secondly, gets back to do the locker room and ices out this ESPN producer, Melinda Adams. And she's got her mic in there. She didn't even ask a question. And he's just like, you subscribe to the pod? And she's like, no. And she's smiling, thinking he's messing around. And he's like, well, then, you're not interviewing me. And then he waits for the next question and then pushes her microphone out of the way to get her out of the circle so she can't get any audio too. And I have all kinds of things to say about that whole interaction, because I love all the dudes that are on social media ripping Pat Bev. All the dudes that were in the interview circle, did anybody stick up for her with Pat Bev and say, dude, what's your problem, man? She didn't do nothing. Let her in the interview circle. Did anybody stick up for her in that circle with Patrick Beverley? Did anybody say anything? If you wanted to have a stance and protect her, y'all should have got up and walked away. That's my first point. My second point is he doesn't do that to a guy. I bet you any money he's never, ever pulled that crap with a dude, but he'd pull it with a woman. And that's crap. That's unacceptable. Now, again, according to her, Beverly called her this morning, and the Bucks called her this morning, both to apologize, and him saying he needs to be better. He apologized for throwing the ball into the stands as well at the Pacers game. But last night, when it got tweeted out, he quote tweeted and said, this is unfair. These people were all over us the whole game. We asked for security to do something about it. The whole game, they did absolutely nothing the whole game. That does not excuse him from throwing the basketballs into the stands, but it should put up a flag of, listen, if you've got players at a game getting harassed and they've asked and you're not doing anything about it, that's a problem. Your security on the road, whoever that security is, should be removing fans if the players have an issue with whoever's sitting behind the bench. And again, you spend all that money. Why do you got to be a clown show for? Like, just sit there, cheer for your team, do what you got to do. Again, thoughts on Patrick Beverley, Bart?
As far as the ball throwing thing, I mean, I don't care. You can't do that. The basketball is such a different sport where nobody, like, these people are on top of you in a way they aren't in other sports. Sure, you can yell stuff at the dugout. Sure, you can, do stuff with, football. I mean, you can get to your voice to a person, but not like this, not where you're actually sitting right behind them and you could physically touch them. And the basketball players are hearing this, like, the entire time. People are yelling at them, heckling, and in a playoff atmosphere, okay, I like, if I'm one of them, I might, like, I might pop at some point, but still, that he threw it very hard. That I'm not excusing. The media scrum thing, everybody's wrong in that situation except for the reporter or the producer, whoever.
Linda Adams, right?
Yeah, which I don't. Okay, Pat Bev's wrong, obviously, for that. The reporters are wrong for, and this happens all the time, where somebody gets punked and then the reporters sit there and they just like, oh, that's crazy, but this is the access that I'm getting. I can't make a stand. They might say something later, but in the moment they will go on. So that they're wrong. I also think, like, and I saw it first with Brian Windhorst, and then I saw other people do it. We couldn't see this woman. We couldn't see her head. We didn't know who it was. This is an embarrassing, tough moment. She can just, like, walk away, and that's fine. But everyone's got to be like, oh, this person's the great. I hope they just asked her, like, hey, is it okay if we stand up for you? That I would have liked them to do. But, she publicly put it out there today. She got the apology. So, Nathan, that's where I stand on it. What about you with those two things?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of your points. I think with both, it's just a little bit of immaturity and, Pat Bev just losing his cool. And we've seen that from him throughout his career. It's kind of been something that he's done where he just loses his cool at times, and he's a passionate guy. He's a fiery guy. It's part of what makes him good on the basketball court, but it can also be his downfall sometimes. And, I know him, they said that the thing that kind of ticked him off was at the end, the fans were saying, like, Cancun on 3 or something like that, which is funny. But, he's just a guy that in the moment when he's losing and when, you're about to have your season end and you have to listen to fans yell at you, like, he's a guy that sometimes cannot take that the best. And something he's got to work on, as he said, he needs to be better. And same with the reporter thing. I didn't see that completely. I saw just a clip of it, but I've been traveling, so I haven't totally looked at that. But yeah, I mean, disappointing for him to do that. And I mean, I'm glad he apologized and everything, but just something that you can't have happen. So hopefully just something that he can learn from. But again, I just think it's part of who he is. What makes him good is his fiery attitude and his passion, but it also, in the moment, he's the guy that is just prone to possibly losing that cool. And the same with, like, Bobby Portis as well. Again, something that helps you out on the court, but also can be your downfall. So it's just upsetting to see it happen, and disappointing.
Okay, so here's the question: do you want him back? Because odds are he's going to get suspended, right? Odds are for throwing that ball, he's going to get suspended. So if you say yes, I want him back, and yes, I'm going to sign him, get ready to play without him to start the year, which again we don't care about because we don't care about the regular season. But would you want him back in a Bucks uniform? Go ahead, Nathan.
I would. Yeah, I would. Just he was one of the few guys outside of the big three that I'm like, I would like to keep him around. I think what he brought to this team was needed. What he brought, the intensity, the energy. Obviously he wasn't great all the time, but I thought he had several games where he made a huge impact, and several playoff games where he made a huge impact. And it was like, man, Pat Bev was awesome tonight. So he's one of the few guys that the few role players that I really am like, hey, I'd like to see them bring him back. And I think all those guys in the locker room, I think, have a respect for him. I know Dame and him had their beef prior, but I think that they did gain a lot of respect for him. I think he was good for that locker room. And I think he brought some camaraderie to that team. So I think he's a guy I want back. But other than him, like, none of the other role players, I'm really thrilled about. Like, we got to get these guys back, and I'm pretty open to moving a lot of the role players, but Pat Bev is one that I would like to see back.
Bart, what about you? Do you want Pat Bev back after all the antics in Game 6?
Yeah, I do. I agree with Nathan. Like, we keep looking for this PJ Tucker role, man, right? And they do need a little more intensity, and that's one way to at least, like, counterbalance the lack of athleticism, the lack of youth that they have on this team. That's one way to counterbalance it. Problem is, if you lose, these kind of outbursts can happen. And we even saw this with Bobby Portis, getting ejected in that series. So it is again, I think it's just an emotional time. This team had an emotional year. They went through a lot. A lot of these guys thought they might be getting traded. Bobby Portis thought he was getting traded for Grant Williams, which we know annoy him. They lost a coach. They hired another coach. They get to the postseason. They don't have Giannis. Then Dame's hurt. I mean, this is a taxing time to be a player on that team, and it just couldn't have been as smooth as anybody thought that it would have gone. And so, unfortunately, you're going to see these kind of outbursts on the court.
All right, so lots of talk of John Horst being a candidate for this position in Detroit with the Pistons to be president of basketball operations. How big of a loss do you think it is, Nathan, if he were to leave this offseason?
It's definitely a pretty significant loss. I mean, I'm not saying that someone couldn't come in and do just as good of a job, but I think as far as I think for Giannis, Horst being one of the few guys left that has been there a while, and I think really is connected with Giannis in that way. It's like Horst is there, Chris is there, and not many other guys are there that I think Giannis really, has had there for a while and is connecting with. So I'd worry about it a little bit for that. And Giannis, if he I think that could be something that down the road, if Giannis ever does consider leaving, that would be something that could play a factor. But I mean, Horst has done a good job. I like how aggressive he is. I like that he's someone I trust. If the Bucks need something, he's going to go out and make a move. He's not someone to just stand pat or be conservative. But as far as drafting has been, terrible. I think he has missed on some trades. He has, made some mistakes with his aggressiveness, like where he, trades 5 seconds for Jay Crowder. Now, everyone at the time thought that was a fine move, but because we thought Jay Crowder would be better than he was. But I think they misjudged, where Crowder was at in his career. Trading Dante again at the time didn't seem terrible, but it they kind of misjudged that. And again, the draft picks have been very bad. He's definitely struggled there. So there are things that I think another GM could come in and do better than John Horst was and be fine at the job. But it just would be something that all of a sudden, again, there's so much, so much turnaround or I don't even know what the word is.
Turnover?
Turnover in this organization right now. To add more to that, I think just would, I don't know, just to add to that would not be ideal to me. I want to see some stability. I want to, see these guys have a whole offseason together, have, Horst have the ability to build a team now around Dame, which he never totally had the opportunity to do last offseason when the trade kind of happened last minute. I want to see this kind of all stick together, this core kind of stick together and see what can come out of it. To have more turnover and to have a new GM come in just adds just more drama and more, you have to now trust a new GM to come in and do what they want. So I do not want to see that happen, but I know some people are much lower on Horst than me and think that someone could come in and immediately just do better than him. So I'm not sure where you stand on it, Bart.
Well, he did really good at the job if the job is win a championship with Giannis. Make sure Giannis stays and win a championship. If that was his job, he excelled at it. If the job is win more than one and build for the future to do that, then there's a lot of things that you can say where he failed. I think things that I have said about Horst in a joking yet serious manner is that whoever he picks is going to be the one guy he saw play one game in the NCAA tournament, and then he's going to pick him in the draft.
Yes.
He did a great job. He did a great job at wow, he got out of this contract. Oh my God, how did he flip them for anybody? He's also the one who signed them to those contracts before he had to do that. And then when you look at the guys that have come in here, and I don't know how much you can say it's his fault. I was excited for Mirotic, who completely disappeared, but Serge Ibaka and Paul Gasol. I know that was just a buyout thing, but these guys that there's no reason for them. Why does everybody have to be 33 years old for you to go and spend any assets on them? Why can't there have been one good young guy that's been developed in this entire run? There hasn't been. So there's a lot that he did right. He won a championship. He kept Giannis here multiple times. But there's also a lot of room where a different GM could maybe succeed where he didn't.
He is Bart Winkler. Check him out weeknights, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. on the Infinity Sports Radio Network on 1250 a.m. The Fan. Of course, former co-host on 1250 a.m. The Fan. You can check out Nathan Marzion as well on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. We'll get back at doing another Green and Growing podcast coming up on Monday night. Lots to talk about coming up this offseason and decisions to be made and comments being made by national guys. We'll get into all of that coming up again on Monday. Nathan, have a safe drive back, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I wanted to ask Bart, when are we setting up our chairs for the 2025 parade?
Oh, yeah, Vay.
Well, we need a new GM probably, and we need a healthy Giannis, and it's going to be a while, Nathan. I'm not ready.
Hey, we'll be all right. We'll be all right.
He is Nathan Marzion, Bart Winkler. Download the Green and Growing podcast on your Odyssey app, wherever you download your favorite podcast at. Check us out on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page as well.